If you are an INFJ woman who has ever felt crushed by the weight of other people's emotions, who has wondered why you absorb pain like a sponge absorbs water, why you feel everything so intensely that sometimes you cannot tell where you end and the world begins, this is your story. To feel everything is not weakness. It is the mark of the empath, the intuitive, the woman who stands at the threshold between seen and unseen worlds. INFJ women possess a rare gift that society misunderstands, pathologizes, and dismisses as oversensitivity or emotional instability. But depth of feeling is not fragility. It is power. It is the ability to perceive what others miss, to sense the undercurrents of human experience, to navigate the invisible architecture of emotion and meaning that structures our relationships, our choices, our lives. The INFJ woman who feels deeply is not broken. She is awake in a world that sleeps. She is the oracle, the healer, the mirror, who reflects back truths that others fear to face. And whilst this gift brings profound suffering, it also brings profound understanding. It makes her dangerous, not because she seeks to harm, but because she sees through pretense, through ego, through the carefully constructed masks that people wear to hide their wounds. She feels the truth beneath the surface, and that truth is her superpower. The first sign that you carry this power is that you do not merely observe emotion, you inhabit it. When someone you love is in pain, you do not sympathize from a distance. You step into their suffering as though it were your own. You feel the weight of their grief pressing against your chest, the hollow ache of their loneliness settling in your bones, the sharp edge of their anger cutting through your calm. This is not imagination. This is not empathy in the ordinary sense. This is something older, something more primal. The psychologist Carl Rogers spoke of unconditional positive regard, the ability to hold space for another person's experience without judgment or defense. But for the INFJ woman, it goes further. She does not simply hold space, she becomes the space. She dissolves the boundary between self and other, allowing their emotions to flow through her like water, through a riverbed. In mythology, this is the gift of the empath archetype, the one who can cross between worlds, who can walk in the underworld and return with knowledge. The Greek myth of Persephone tells this story. She descends into Hades, into the realm of shadow and death, and emerges transformed, carrying the wisdom of both light and dark. The INFJ woman lives this myth daily. She descends into the emotional underworld of others, feels what they cannot name, and brings back insight that can heal or destroy. This is not a metaphor. This is her lived reality. She feels everything, because she is wired to perceive the invisible, to translate the language of the soul into words and actions. And this makes her invaluable to those who seek to understand themselves. But it also makes her vulnerable to those who seek to exploit her gift. The second sign is that your depth of feeling is not limited to people you know. You feel the suffering of strangers, the collective grief of communities, the silent despair of those society ignores. You walk through a city and sense the loneliness radiating from the homeless man on the corner, the quiet panic of the woman clutching her child's hand too tightly, the exhaustion of the waitress, who smiles mechanically, while her eyes betray defeat. This is overwhelming. It is too much. And yet you cannot turn it off. Jung referred to this as the collective unconscious, the shared reservoir of human experience that connects us all beneath the surface of individual consciousness. The INFJ woman is particularly attuned to this collective dimension. She does not experience herself as a separate, isolated self. She experiences herself as part of a vast web of interconnected lives, each one vibrating with emotion, each one sending ripples through the field. This is the gift of the mystic, the one who perceives unity, where others see only separation. In Buddhist philosophy, this is called bodhita, the awakened heart that feels compassion for all sentient beings. The INFJ woman embodies this principle, not through spiritual practice, but through her very nature. She cannot help but feel the pain of the world, because she recognizes that pain as her own. This makes her a natural healer, a counselor, a guide for those who are lost. But it also makes her a target for burnout, for compassion fatigue, for the slow erosion of self that comes from giving without boundaries. Society does not teach INFJ women how to protect their gift. It teaches them to give endlessly, to sacrifice, to be the caretaker, the listening ear, the shoulder to cry on. And so they give until there is nothing left, until they become hollow, exhausted, resentful of the very sensitivity that once felt like a blessing. The third sign is that you feel emotions in layers, not as simple discrete experiences, but as complex multidimensional realities. When you feel sadness, you also feel the history of that sadness, the memories it evokes, the future it foreshadows. When you feel joy, you feel the fragility of that joy, the shadow of loss that hovers at its edges, the knowledge that nothing lasts. This is what the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard meant when he spoke of the dizziness of freedom, the vertigo that comes from recognizing the infinite possibilities and inevitable limits of existence. The INFJ woman lives in this vertigo. She does not experience life as a series of isolated moments. She experiences it as a continuous flow of meaning, where past, present, and future collapse into a single, overwhelming now. Neuroscience suggests that highly sensitive individuals process sensory and emotional information more deeply than others. Their brains show increased activity in regions associated with empathy, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. They are not imagining their intensity, they are wired for it. The INFJ woman's brain is a finely tuned instrument, capable of perceiving subtle shifts in tone, body language, and energy. She picks up on what is unspoken, on the subtext beneath the text, on the truth that others try to conceal. This makes her an exceptional judge of character, an intuitive strategist, a perceptive analyst of human behavior. But it also makes her prone to overthinking, to spiraling into anxiety, to replaying conversations in her mind, searching for hidden meanings. She cannot experience anything simply. She experiences everything deeply, and depth is both a gift and a burden. It enables her to form profound connections, to discern nuances that others overlook, and to offer insights that can profoundly impact lives. But it also means she can never escape into the comfortable numbness that others use to protect themselves from the harshness of reality. The fourth sign is that your emotions have a physical dimension. You do not merely think or feel your way through experience, you embody it. Anxiety tightens your chest, makes your breath shallow, and sends tremors through your hands. Grief settles in your stomach, heavy and nauseating, or lodges in your throat, choking your words. Joy floods your body with warmth, with lightness, with the sensation of expansion. Anger burns through your muscles, making your jaw clench and your fists tighten. This is what the philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty meant when he argued that we are not minds trapped in bodies, but embodied consciousness. The INFJ woman knows this intuitively. She experiences emotion not as abstract mental states but as lived, bodily realities. This is why emotional exhaustion translates into physical illness for her. Chronic stress manifests as headaches, digestive issues, and autoimmune conditions. Her body keeps the score, as trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk famously observed. It remembers every unprocessed emotion, every boundary violation, every moment of empathic overload, and because she feels so deeply, her body carries a heavier load than most. This is not weakness, this is the price of sensitivity, the cost of being open to the full spectrum of human experience. In ancient Greek medicine, the concept of the humors suggested that emotional and physical health were inextricably linked, implying that imbalances in one domain inevitably affected the other. The INFJ woman lives this truth. She cannot compartmentalize, cannot separate mind from body, emotion from physical sensation. This makes her acutely aware of her own needs, but it also makes her vulnerable to neglecting those needs in the service of others. She will push through exhaustion to support a friend, ignore her own hunger to finish a project, and suppress her own pain to avoid burdening others. And her body rebels, forcing her to stop and acknowledge what she has been denying. The fifth sign is that you experience a kind of emotional resonance that others find uncanny. You walk into a room, and immediately sense the tension, the unspoken conflict, the hidden sadness. You meet someone for the first time, and know, within minutes, whether they are genuine or performing, whether they are safe or dangerous, whether they are at peace or in turmoil. This is not magic, this is pattern recognition, operating at the level of intuition. The INFJ woman has spent her life observing human behavior, cataloging subtle cues, building an internal database of emotional signatures. She reads micro-expressions, vocal inflections and shifts in posture. She notices what others dismiss as insignificant. And her brain processes this information so quickly, so automatically, that it bypasses conscious reasoning and emerges as gut feeling, as instinct, as knowing. Malcolm Gladwell explored this phenomenon in his book Blink, arguing that intuition is not mystical, but the result of rapid, unconscious analysis based on accumulated experience. The INFJ woman is a master of this rapid cognition. She has trained herself, often without realizing it, to be a human lie detector, a walking emotional barometer. This makes her invaluable in situations that require insight, discernment, and mediation. She can sense when negotiations are about to break down, when a relationship is on the verge of collapse, when someone is hiding something crucial. But this gift also isolates her. People find it unsettling to be seen so clearly, to have their defenses penetrated so effortlessly. They accuse her of being paranoid, of reading too much into things, of overthinking, but she is rarely wrong. Her intuition is honed by years of deep observation, and it serves her well, even when others refuse to believe it. The sixth sign is that you do not merely feel your own emotions, you feel the emotional residue of places and objects. You walk into a house where violence occurred, and feel the heaviness in the air, the lingering fear. You hold an antique and sense the emotions of its previous owner, the joy or sorrow that clung to it. You visit a hospital or prison and feel overwhelmed by the accumulated suffering, the collective despair. This is what Jung might have called participation mystique, the experience of being psychically connected to the world in a way that transcends rational explanation. The INFJ woman is porous. She does not maintain rigid boundaries between herself and her environment. She absorbs, she senses, she picks up on energies that others dismiss as superstition. Modern psychology might explain this as heightened sensitivity to environmental cues, to subtle sensory information that triggers emotional associations. But for the INFJ woman, the experience is real and undeniable. She knows that places hold memory, that objects carry emotional imprints, that the boundary between psyche and world is thinner than most people imagine. This makes her a natural witch, in the original sense of the word, a wise woman who understands the hidden connections between things. It makes her a powerful creator of atmosphere, of ritual, of sacred space. However, it also makes her vulnerable to energetic overwhelm, absorbing toxicity from her surroundings, and feeling trapped in environments that others tolerate without difficulty. She needs solitude not as a luxury but as a necessity. As a way to cleanse herself of the emotional debris she accumulates, simply by existing in the world. The seventh sign is that your emotional depth gives you access to creativity that others cannot reach. You feel so much that you must express, must translate the internal chaos into art, into words, into music, into any form that can contain what overflows from within. The writer Anais Nin said, "We write to taste life twice, in the moment, and in retrospect." For the INFJ woman, writing or creating is not an optional activity. It is a natural expression of her personality. It is survival. It is the way she processes what she feels, the way she makes sense of the overwhelming influx of emotion and intuition. Her creativity is not born from technique or discipline alone. It is born from necessity, from the need to externalize what cannot be held inside. This is why INFJ women are often writers, artists, musicians, therapists, or anyone whose work involves translating the invisible into the visible. They are the mythmakers, the storytellers, the ones who give form to feeling. Jung believed that creativity was a way of integrating the conscious and unconscious, of bringing the shadow into the light. The INFJ woman creates not to escape her depth but to explore it, to dive deeper, to discover what lies beneath the surface of ordinary experience. Her art is often dark, intense, and emotionally raw. It unsettles people because it refuses to look away from pain, from complexity, from the paradoxes of human existence. But it also heals, because it speaks to those who feel too much, who thought they were alone in their intensity. It says you are not crazy, you are not broken, you are seen. The eighth sign is that you experience emotional exhaustion in a way that others do not understand. You can spend an hour with a friend and feel as though you have run a marathon. You can have a single difficult conversation and need days to recover from it. This is not weakness. This is the reality of processing emotions at maximum intensity. The INFJ woman does not skim the surface of experience. She dives deep, and deep diving requires a lot of energy. Psychologist Elaine Aron, who coined the term highly sensitive person, explains that sensitive individuals have a more reactive nervous system. They process stimuli more thoroughly, which means they reach a point of overwhelm faster. For the INFJ woman, every interaction is multi-layered. She is not simply listening to words. She is reading subtext, sensing emotions, anticipating needs, managing her own reactions, and trying to maintain boundaries all at once. It is exhausting, and because society does not recognize this as legitimate exhaustion, she often feels guilty for needing rest, for withdrawing, for saying no. She compares herself to others who seem to socialize effortlessly, who can attend multiple events without collapsing, who do not need days of solitude to recharge. But she is not like them. Her depth is her difference, and her difference demands accommodation. She must learn to honor her need for rest, to recognize that her capacity for feeling is both a gift and a limit. She cannot change her nature, but she can change how she responds to it. She can stop apologizing for needing time alone, for setting boundaries, for protecting her energy. She can recognize that her depth is not a flaw but a feature, and that the world needs people who feel deeply, even if the world does not always know how to value them. The ninth sign is that your emotional intensity gives you a kind of moral clarity that others lack. You feel injustice viscerally. You cannot tolerate cruelty, dishonesty, or exploitation. You can instantly see through manipulation and gaslighting. This is because you have felt the pain those behaviors cause, have experienced the corrosive effect of betrayal, and have witnessed the damage done by those who lack empathy. The INFJ woman has a finely tuned moral compass, not because she is self-righteous but because she has felt the consequences of moral failure. She knows what it means to be hurt, to be taken advantage of, to be disregarded, and she refuses to inflict that pain on others. This is the archetype of the guardian, the one who stands between the vulnerable and the predator, who speaks truth to power, who refuses to compromise her integrity for convenience. The philosopher Emmanuel Levinas argued that ethics begins with the recognition of the other's vulnerability, with the face-to-face encounter that demands response. The INFJ woman lives by these ethics. She cannot ignore suffering, cannot turn away from injustice, cannot pretend that everything is fine when it is not. This makes her a powerful advocate, a fierce protector, a truth-teller. However, it also makes her exhausting to those who benefit from the status quo, who prefer comfort to truth, and who would rather avoid conflict than confront wrongdoing. She is often labeled difficult, demanding, and too intense. But she is unwilling to participate in collective delusion, reluctant to pretend that harm is acceptable, and reluctant to sacrifice her values for social approval. The 10th sign is that your depth of feeling allows you to love in a way that is rare and transformative. When you love, you do not love casually. You love completely, fiercely, with every part of yourself. You see the person beneath the persona, the potential beneath the flaws, the beauty beneath the wounds. You love not what someone pretends to be, but what they truly are. And that kind of love is terrifying to those who are not ready for it. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage." The INFJ woman sees the princess beneath the dragon, the wounded soul beneath the defensive armor. She loves helping people reach their potential, believes in them when they don't believe in themselves, and holds space for their growth even when they resist. This is the archetype of the healer, the one who sees wholeness where others see only brokenness. However, this kind of love is also dangerous, as it can lead her to stay too long with those who are incapable of reciprocating, who take her love and give nothing in return, who mistake her depth for weakness and her compassion for stupidity. She must learn to discern between those who are genuinely struggling and those who are simply unwilling to change, between those who honor her gift and those who exploit it. Her love is her superpower, but only when it is directed towards those who are worthy of it, who meet her depth with their own, who understand that love is not possession or transaction, but the mutual recognition of two souls who have chosen to walk together through the darkness and the light. This depth, this overwhelming capacity to feel, is not something to overcome or cure, it is something to cherish. It is the essence of who you are as an INFJ woman. It is your connection to the invisible world, your access to truths that others cannot perceive, your ability to create, to heal, to transform. The world will tell you that you are too much, too sensitive, too emotional. The world will try to convince you that your intensity is a problem that needs solving. But the world is wrong. Your depth is not weakness, it is power. It is the ability to navigate complexity, to hold paradox, to feel everything, and still choose love, still choose truth, still choose to show up fully even when it hurts. You are not broken because you feel deeply, you are awake. And the world needs awake women. Women who refuse to numb themselves, who refuse to pretend, who insist on living with their hearts wide open, even when that means living with constant vulnerability. Your superpower is not that you feel less than others, but that you feel more. And you have learned to transform that feeling into wisdom, into art, into compassion, into the kind of love that changes lives. That is rare, that is valuable, that is who you are. If this resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in these signs, you are not alone. There is a community of INFJ women who understand what it means to feel everything, who know the cost and the gift of this depth. Share your story in the comments below. Please tell us what it is like for you to navigate the world with this kind of sensitivity. And if you want to continue exploring what it means to be an INFJ woman, to understand the psychology and the mythology of this rare archetype, subscribe to this channel. This is not just content, this is a conversation, a community of deep feelers who refuse to apologize for who they are. You belong here.